Welcome to this lesson on importing collections into MongoDB using the Mongo import utility. In this lesson, we'll see how to use the Mongo import utility to create a new database and collection. We'll also see how to drop a collection or to drop a database as well. So I have the command prompt open, and I've already changed directory down to where I have the version of Mongo, which happens to be 4.0 that I'm using, installed. So that happens on my computer to be C program files, MongoDB server 4.0 bin. The Mongo service is also running. And what I'm going to do here is take a directory and see what files are in this location. And so we see the Mongo executables. We also see the Mongo import utility is here. And for convenience, I have copied some of the JSON files that we'll be using to import data into our Mongo databases. So here is primer-dataset.json that has the restaurants collection. And so we're going to import that. You could put this in a different directory and simply in the Mongo import utility command line, you could specify that directory. For convenience and clarity, I've put it right here in the same directory. So if you haven't got that located there, your JSON file is not located right where your Mongo import utility is, you either want to move it or make note of the path that you'll need to specify. The other thing that I've done is brought up the current Mongo documentation and done a search on the Mongo import utility and scrolled through the documentation until I found this sample illustrating how to do a simple import. And I'm going to copy that, Control-C, and paste that in here. And then we're going to edit it just a little bit. I'd like to name my database test, and I would like to name my collection restaurants. And the JSON file I'll be using is not contacts.json. It's going to be primer-dataset.json. And here is where I would specify the file if it was in some different directory, but it's located in the same directory as the Mongo import utility itself, so this will be fine. Okay, I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to come over here to my command prompt and paste that into the command line. So I now have that command line there calling the Mongo import utility and passing it those parameters that we've just specified. And I'll press enter, and I should see it complete with no errors. So it says imported 25,359 documents. So that looks good. That's what we're expecting. So just to verify that, let's bring up the Mongo editor we're using. I'm using Mongo 3T. Version 1.3 is the current version I'm using as of today. And then if we take a look at the system, let's go ahead and refresh this because that was running before I started importing. And so I need to refresh Robo 3T, and I see that there is now a test database. And if I expand it and look at the collections, there's one collection, and it is the restaurants collection. And if I double click it, I get a query tab, and it comes up with the default select all query, and I see there are my documents. So that's all looking very good. Excellent. Okay, so now we know how to import collection throughout our work. If we need to refresh and go back to a fresh start of a collection, we can use that technique. Just simply change the parameters to the database and the collection name that you want and alter it to use the JSON file you want to import. Let's see how we would drop that. If we've made some changes and we want to clean things up and go back for a clean start on all of our data, we can drop this database. Let's start by dropping the collection. We could kill the database test, and that would drop all of the collections in it. Sometimes we may want to drop just individual collections. So if I right-click on this, I can drop the collection. The other thing I could do is if I wanted to save the collection but make it an empty collection, I can remove all the documents. But I'm going to drop the collection. And now the collection is gone, but notice the empty database, the database with no collection, still exists. I can also clean this up if I want to by coming and right-clicking on the database and dropping the entire database. And now I'm back to where I was with the system when I first installed it, with no collections other than the system and administrative collections that are used for the system to operate. And that's this lesson. This concludes the lesson.